In this lesson, we'll focus on drawing some eyelashes on the front view of our eye. So in the previous lesson, we focused on painting in the little details of the iris. I'll go ahead and zoom back in here so you can see once again. So if you look at an iris, you'll have those little fibers or tendons that basically make up the iris. Again, the iris is controlling the size and diameter of the pupil, which really dictates how much light enters into your retina. So in between lessons, I just kind of continue to really tweak the little details. Basically, if you want to, feel free to come over here to this iris group and just kind of break it down to see all the different steps that I used here to basically build up those details. Now I want to shift gears and now focus on eyelashes. So if you're painting a portrait of someone, whether they're male or female, you want to have those eyelashes in there because everyone has eyelashes. Now, if you're working on a comic book, you could probably leave the eyelashes off of a male character, but you still want to play them up on a female character. So keep that in mind. So a common mistake that I often see on eyelashes is you'll see them drawn like this, where they're these nicely lined up little blades of grass, almost like a picket fence, okay? And so your eyelashes don't look like that naturally unless you've just done something crazy to them or you're wearing some sort of really stylized fake lashes, but they don't look like that. So I'm going to take a few steps back here, just hitting Control-Z on my keyboard there. Okay. And also, for those of you following along in Photoshop, I've got a new layer here titled Lashes. So the thing about hair, whether they're lashes or eyebrows or hair on your head, hair has a natural tendency to clump together, okay? So I'm just kind of coming off the top rim of this upper lid, kind of where it starts to roll underneath, where you get that thickness, okay? And I'm just kind of starting to kind of work in some lashes here. And so I may spend, one or two attempts really trying to get this down the way I want. But you can start to see how I've got some areas here where I'm kind of clumping them together, having them come together kind of at their tip, at the end of the hair itself. Okay. And when I'm painting lashes, right, I try not to make them real defined. I almost want them to be kind of soft or slightly out of focus. The way I'm kind of achieving this here is in my brush panel, I have transfer enabled, pen pressure for both opacity and flow controls, leaving the jitter percentage at 0. And I have shape dynamics turned on. So the control for the size is set to pen pressure, and I leave that percentage at 0. So the shape dynamics allows me to dictate the size of my brush tip based off of how much pressure I apply up to the size that I have set currently right here in my brush preset picker. Okay. So I'm keeping that in mind as I do this, and I can always take my eraser tool and kind of shave down some areas if I feel like they're just a little bit long. As you get closer down here towards the tear duct, they're not going to be as long. Okay. So the lashes are really something that helps kind of protect your eye from like crud that's in the air, dirt and dust. Okay. I'm also going to turn on transfer for my eraser tool just to kind of soften up some of this just a little bit. Okay. And then I'll kind of come back over that to really kind of get it the way that I want. But again, just kind of focusing on some little areas where they kind of clump together. And here and there, you may want to have kind of a rogue lash that's kind of going the other way. If you want to kind of play around with that to where it doesn't feel perfectly organized. Coming off the bottom lid here, just kind of right there below that little rim where it kind of starts to roll, where you get that thickness. Kind of the same thing. Kind of working in some of those lashes. But you can see how I'm kind of thinking about how they kind of clump together. Now you can have a few that kind of, again, are more standalone, but just kind of thinking about those tips, the tips of these individual hairs as they kind of come together. Okay. Now it also depends how close up of a portrait that you're working on. How closely are you going to see the eye? if it's something that where the eye is going to be further away in appearance, then you don't really need to worry about drawing every individual little hair, okay? You can just really focus on it being just kind of one mass, okay? So in that case, you may want to kind of increase the size of your brush. If you were looking at it, say, from this far away, notice how you don't really see the individual little hair strands, okay? So in that case, you'd probably want to size your brush up a little bit more and just kind of focus on it being just kind of a singular mass, okay? But hopefully that kind of provides you a little bit of insight as to how I think about and approach painting lashes. Again, I just don't want them to feel uniform by any means, but I also want to have some little bit of clumping here and there on some different lashes. Again, hair has a tendency to clump together, okay? So with all that said, we have a course in our library where I go through and I paint some hair, some female hair on a head, and I talk about the same concepts of how hair clumps together and how you can really build up the look of hair, kind of working from dark to light. So definitely check out that course. I think you'll find it really beneficial, not just for working in eyelashes, but just for different hairstyles that would be on the head. But just again, kind of think about that overall concept of hair clumping together. Okay. All right, so in our next lesson, we're going to go ahead and finish out by just adding some color to everything we see here that's still in grayscale. We'll be going back to the skin color layer that we used to basically work in that base for the iris, using that color blend mode, which allows us to preserve our values. So stick around, and we'll go ahead and finish this out in our next and final lesson.